But up here, you can have all the organization, collaboration.
It's you. The council's having their meeting.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Is Dave still on council?
He is, yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
I'm not here. Oh, hi. Yes, you should.
Yeah.
Did he take the job?
They haven't said anything. They probably they have to, the board has to, but
You don't be seen up here with him.
I know. So I'm like,
You need your hat and glasses and
It
big
might be
nose.
too late for them.
hey, no.
They know that she's an affiliate.
Well, big hoopla meeting. The main guy who I've not met before for this meeting, and probably at least 80 people, maybe more.
80 people at a meeting?
Main guy, who's new, he's like the head of everything, not everything, just up there.
Yeah.
Spitting image of how you would eat minus the,
Oh my
God.
God.
I'm like, oh my God, he looks like Howdy Doody.
Oh no.
Oh. Between that and the comic relief from the dial in the telephone system,
Yeah.
with people leaving their mic on
Oh.
and making noises, somebody burped. That was pretty good. It's like, we gotta love it. We're human. We might like to pretend we're not, but we are.
Yeah. Don't tell me Howdy Doody is running the government.
That might be just what we need right now.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
That's good news.
That'll save the planet. Howdy doody. The rescue.
Yeah.
I know you guys both feel that.
We're in good hands with Howdy Doody.
And the way they have the room mics, They have like the main microphones and then they have dangling microphones that have really
Yeah,
amazing sensitivity. And
sure.
I know from experience that if you're listening in from afar, if you dialed in and you're listening to a meeting, sometimes people whispering in other people's ears, you can hear that better than you can when you're the presenter.
Oh, if the mic is near them,
Yeah.
sure.
So when I nudged the woman that was sitting next to me and said,
Yeah,
"Someone here is the spitting image of Heidi Judy," I didn't say.
but someone in the room,
I
yeah,
am politically correct. I wasn't gonna
good.
put a name with it. It would have
Did
been
she
just
agree?
Too much. Yeah,
So she was, pardon me for saying it, mature enough to remember Howdy Doody. And she could have been a woman in her,
No, she's younger, but I think she got kids and stuff.
Uh-huh. right.
How do you really transcends age brackets?
Well, that was a good meeting. Go out for ice cream.
Just had ice cream.
Oh, did you?
Oh.
Good for you. Where'd you go?
The gas station. I just got one of those little cones with the nuts on it.
Oh, perfect.
I had a big egg white from Starbucks.
Oh, nice.
To get me
We could do tummy drumming.
I got plenty in there.
Yeah.
eyes are gonna.
Stock it up,
Wow.
you know?
Oh, yeah.
Might as well eat all the
Tough
pizza I can before it's all gone.
Yep.
We ran out of wheat. This room has interesting acoustics, actually. It's very hard to hear even though we're very close. It's funny.
This room is so bad acoustically. Yeah.
Mm.
Uh-huh. It's just a giant echo chamber.
Yeah. Sound doesn't like have any direction. It doesn't seem like it's just scattered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why everyone that goes to this is that way.
It's cool to be in a acoustically designed, well-designed
Oh, yeah.
place where, you know, you can hear it from the way back, somebody up on stage whispering.
Yeah.
There is something about this finding its way into everything.
In Missouri, you mean?
There's just, I mean, it used to be retreats and all the shit that I did
Yeah.
was so different than day-to-day life. I mean, it just all kind of like, day-to-day life is as magical sometimes as retreats were.
Sure.
And sometimes it sucks, but I've had retreats that suck too, so.
Yeah.
I don't know, there's just not that differentiation. This is blowing that right out of the water. So if it's not here all the time.
Presence is the great equalizer.
There's also something about it on the internet, I don't have to do it right. I can just take a nap.
Start there. Nap, segue into pizza. Perhaps another nap, segue into ice cream.
Yeah.
I like to double it up, like at every turn, you know, like pizza, ice cream, nap, maybe a little more pizza, then some more ice cream.
Oh, now that sounds like a retreat.
Sprinkling general across all of it.
Yes. Well, self-concern is a form of hijacking. the hijacking, um, you could say replaces or obscures the presence itself that, doesn't have any commentary, doesn't have the anxiety of becoming. But self-reference, self-concern is fraught with, the inescapable anxiety of becoming.
It's not becoming, just coping with what computers are to me.
Yes, I mean, see, yeah, so becoming is that, any form of coping or orientation is right? It's a gesture of becoming.
That's
Yeah.
case, nuts, bars,
Juice
chocolate.
and snacks. What are those things?
They're roasted nuts. You got what kind? You'll recognize them.
Macadamia nuts?
Hazelnut.
Hazelnuts,
Roasted
yes.
hazelnut. I like the way he's becoming, I'm like, mulling that around. Because becoming is the thievery.
Yeah, becoming is, launches a referendum as the movement of thought and the movement of association. So attraction and aversion are, instantaneously present.
But there, it seems like attraction and aversion are just here all the time anyway. You
Well-
look at some people and you're like, "Grrr," and you look at other people, you're like, yum. And
Yeah.
it's not even a mental thing, it's almost like a biological thing.
Well, you could make a fine point that the the nature of perceiving and the, call it, biologic or instinctive attraction and aversion is different than, when the mind comes in and the narrative is told. And so if there's, you feel at ease with even someone or something or a view that's, pleasing to you, or someone or something that's displeasing to you. But left alone, there's no, disharmony. The disharmony is when the combatant, the combatant self gets in the mix.
Starts to work with, oh, I should like this person, or I can't,
Yeah,
I can't like, act on my instincts here, I'm supposed to be better than that.
right, yeah, see,
That is
now you've
what
gone
mine is.
schizophrenic. Yeah.
What was it? I was hearing, something was about,
It's kind of simpler in that it's like, just the second that it objectifies anything,
Yes,
that the attention gets hijacked by objects.
yes,
And then it starts qualifying, and it doesn't have to be you, it could be
That's
any
right.
object.
yeah. The hijacking, the attention, the qualification is all, single movement. Happens, you could say, so fast that there's not even, elapsed time.
No, but it happens so fast in the other direction as well, so that it's not,
Sure.
like, an issue either way, it's just,
Yeah. As a yogi becomes cognizant, aware, palpably, not just philosophically, palpably aware of the nature or texture of presence, and can discover that that presence is not polluted by narrative or psychological time, then you could say you can more skillfully see or witness the contrast of being free from becoming or immersed in becoming.
you're just kind of more, attention is more aware of the different gradients of, that are
Yeah.
always occurring, always have been, they're just, but you're just kind of more aware.
Yes.
You're not as hyper-focused on only one thing, so you're more aware of the other,
Yeah.
rest of the symphony is like filled in, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
not just the chorus, or whatever
It's
the chorus would be.
gradient radiance.
It does seem like suffering so frequently is when everything comes to a pinpoint in one area. Whether it's, it's physical pain, it's usually that's all you got.
Yeah.
Coming on the level. Or an issue with another person, that's all, like, it's that narrowing of the focus that
Yeah.
can be so frequently.
Presence as space is, you could say, welcoming. It's disinterested in what appears in it, because it knows it's not that. But locality, as the person, is loaded with, right, preference and preemptive behavior and qualification, all of which amounts to nothing at all, but who said suffering was made of anything? It might not be.
Okay.
That'd be funny. If it turned out that suffering isn't made of anything, can't imagine where I got all that complaining from. Could turn out to be true that presence or present experience is actually, if not absolutely, unqualified. And if that's even a little bit true, that could be a jarring discovery. So if you use the metaphor of walking it back, being or appearing too local, right? One's focus is too strong, too narrow, limited space because of hyper focus. And as
It's very small, finite resources.
yeah, right. Yeah, finite resources that we must control. Where's Howdy Doody when you need him? As you walk it back and you enjoy the sensorium of being non-local, well, now there's a certain kind of welcoming or a certain kind of ease. The pain of hyper focus is relaxed and released. And if you walk it back further still, then, you're in trouble, because, you start entering into the jhanic realm, which is fuck you bliss. It's, it's not measuring anything. It's not operating, bless you, it's not operating through what we might refer to as human consciousness. Human consciousness is it's a curious magical artifact that appears in the way that it appears. You could say at the pleasure of emptiness. So as you walk back, whatever attention is, whatever consciousness is, whatever subjects and objects and implication are, as you walk it back, you pretty speechless. One hopes that mindfulness and other New Age trinkets are designed to facilitate that revelation. The revelation that the reliance that we place on self is counterfeit. The reliance that we place on consciousness is counterfeit. Now there's no squirming about to be what? Free? Enlightened? To mitigate discomfort or displeasure? There's no squirming about. The squirming about is an outgassing of a subtle, right, aspect of identity.
Almost like squirming is just so ingrained. It's a slow winding down of that top that's been spinning forever.
Sure. Yeah. Slow,
Fires-
sudden.
Fires back up sometimes. It's easy. I'm a squirmer.
Yeah, that's, we're squirmers.
Thinking I was getting somewhere.
Well, you could say the error or miscalculation is before you think you're getting somewhere or not getting somewhere, you have to, let's say, think you're you.
Be somebody.
That you see that there is conscious contact, which is marvelous and euphoric and strange and, disorienting. But that there is whatever conscious contact is not really evidence of there being you or I or me. There's just conscious contact. And how does it get personalized? Through language and symbols and education and expectation. All the ways that one's naked attention has been steered by, the muggles that raised you, the culture and the society that raises us, imposes the heresy of nomenclature. So we become, agreeable. We're undefended. We become agreeable puppets from a very early age, let's say. So this strange miracle of emptiness appearing as conscious contact gets assigned I, which is too local. And of course, the injury of being raised, even in, Western society in these, whatever, last decades of apparent abundance, quickly dwindling, but, it, we think it's worthwhile to be I. That's what we're taught. That's how we're educated and conditioned, that it's worthwhile to be I. Our parents expect it of us, our siblings expect it of us, our teachers, our employers. Everyone expects it of us to be I. So it's strange, at a minimum, to reject it.
The less that's there, the more this moves freely,
It's
in whatever way it wants.
absolutely, it's always been moving, you could say freely, right?
It was so encumbered with I,
Yes.
and it's still that, not, but
Well, there is no ideal place.
And you're definitely never gonna do that.
Yeah. Yeah, no one has to step up, around here and say, oh, yeah,
He's like.
I'm enjoying much less I. When you do that at a Weight Watchers, meeting, you weigh in. Yeah, you weigh in, you tell everyone how you're doing, you get applauded, around here, who cares? I, not I. Fuck it.
I just want to see you and I eat too much pizza.
Not as much fun being Ramana Maharshi as you might think. All these strangers staring at you and shit.
Trying to make money off you.
Yeah. God, you don't want to be on the receiving end of admiring muggles.
No.
That would
That's
have to
worse
suck.
nightmare.
That's a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't care how fucking enlightened you are. It's still a nightmare. But you see, this is the seduction of qualification. I am something, I've been something, I will be something. I will use, all the means at my disposal to get to where I'm going or think I need to be in order to be happy or enlightened or invulnerable or not subject to pain or of use to others or build my healing practice. Study mediumship so I can tell people bullshit about themselves that doesn't really matter anyway. It's just a big, ongoingly. And it's fatiguing, of course. So that's the dance, qualification will always find something that's missing or inadequate or too little or too much of, something that needs to be done about it,
always got something to say.
Yeah, qualification is rock on.
Peanut gallery, never shut up.
Yeah. But, building a castle and a moat and a drawbridge around your idea of yourself, that's painful.
An implosion kind of thing where it's just brings it down to a pinpoint of I.
It's just insatiable. You become a victim of insatiability. No amount of succor or joy or surprise or miracle, devotion, sacred gifts can even get through your patina, one's patina. The human species, without widespread realization, has a date with extinction. Guaranteed. No, it might not. Well, everyone in San Rafael's really happy, or Marin County, or whatever. Except Adam Chacksfield, he lives in the East Bay.
Yeah. Yes, they're on fire. And there's so much
Right.
for them. And dehydration.
Yeah. Paul Hederman called the other day to threaten to come back here. So I said, sure.
You run out of money.
No, his friends in Dover, are hounding him, and he's going to do his East Coast tour.
You want to come to that?
Yeah, he said, yeah, he's going to reach out to Phoebe.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and I said to him, hey, just, we'll fit you in whenever you don't have, make your commitment, see where everything falls, and, blot us in at the last minute. It's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to seriously work on your coffee selection.
I should, just gotta go to Sellers Brothers. There's a Sellers Brothers. Yeah, I'm still doing the bizarre Russian roulette on my cell phone. I've got a bunch of stuff.
Hmm.
And sometimes it just randomly comes up when I turn the car, and I'm like, okay, it's like Paul the other day, and then he do a pipe in, and then some spoken hand rhythm stuff. And
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
it's
I
fun.
always listen to it. I have enough on there that just seems to feel like I'm listening to the same thing. So, this gets weirder. In actually a kind of good way. It's just weird. Like, inexplicable how things roll.
Yeah. It's unqualified. It's unqualifiable. So, the word weird is somewhat well suited to it.
The arrogance, the thing that I've created, whatever is appearing to me, it's just astonishing. Like how much I operate on that.
Sure. Yeah, that's another, strange cul-de-sac of, the Abraham Hicksish secret law of attraction crowd. Because that, cements one's codependency with the mirage of consciousness to then be engaged and enrolled in having things work out a certain way according to our ever shifting desires and self-image.
I suck when I'm not happy. That's here. I don't
Yeah,
get
there's
what I
no
want,
freedom.
I didn't do it right.
There's no freedom in getting what you want. There's just no freedom in it.
That's one of the questions that I ask when I'm working with people in The work is, what do you think you have? Like, if you really got what you want, what do you think you have? Try to get to the essence
Yeah,
of what you think you have. And sometimes it just melts away in that.
yeah. Permission to leave this workshop. Really, permission just to blast you, you know. Who knows? You know, the wanting, what influences it, right? The biology, the mood, the sentiment, the health, the gut, flora and fauna, you know, the hormones du jour. It's a ball, you know, bolus of wanting. And that bolus of wanting is suffering, dukkha, unsatisfactoriness. Only, just to be, you know, definitive about it, only the revelation of its unqualified nature is free of dukkha. Everything else is unsatisfactory. By virtue of the mirage of self, the mirage of body, the mirage of becoming, the mirage of, you know, defense, setting aside, you know, grain, water, raisins, or whatever we're setting aside, books, tapes, CDs, fond memories, you know, rainy day clothing, so that we're, you know, prepared to meet the exigencies of the day. It's misery making.
It all needs like protection somewhere and defense.
Absolutely,
And
it
it's funny 'cause you
does.
see it, you know, here with defense. That's like our motto, defense.
That's right.
Defend the country, defend the crops, defend your property, defend,
Yes,
defend,
that's,
defend.
that,
Make sure nobody steals anything, put
yes.
up cameras everywhere.
Yeah, that's the misery of it. Yeah, I mean, you know,
Defend.
naked or unqualified being or presence does not accumulate and has nothing to defend. It has no codependency. That's an absolute freedom, which is no longer even freedom, because freedom is still relativistic. If one imagines themselves to be a person craving freedom, what the fuck is that? That's just suffering. And no amount of freedom in that context will be satisfactory, will be useful.
No amount of anything would be satisfactory.
No
It's like an
amount of
addiction.
anything.
Like addictions are characterized by more, giving you less. And it's that same kind of like addiction thing. More, I want more from this boy. Give it, it gives you less and less.
Yeah, the primary addiction before the substance and behavior addictions kick in to medicate and mitigate, the primary addiction is locality, presumption of self, codependency with consciousness. I mean, that's just irritating. You know, you slip in a game of golf, you know, on a trip to the shore, and you're like, yeah, it was a good year. I'm not, you know, above it or beneath it or anything. Perhaps it's more the an intelligent or sensitive investigation of the warp and woof and consciousness is a qualitative discovery, certainly not a quantitative discovery. And the qualitative discovery, if you're lucky, is right here, right now. Right now, it's the quality of presence, not anything to attract or reject, which is quantitative. And we miss out on the qualitative aspect. Perhaps out of familiarity and pride. Well, yes, familiarity and pride equals greed. That's right. Yeah.
The optimizer, maximizer, get the most out of this.
They're always for sale, everyone's for sale, when are you, it's like, all day long. Yeah, but we'll pay you, so that's a definite. That doesn't, it's like constant.
It's like the creatures know what we don't. The creatures, or even plants, and they're just just what they are. No one's striving, effort.
They might be. They might be. We just don't know.
Everything becomes like animated. I'm like, there's like faces within plant. You're like, is that a thing? I don't know. It could be a thing. How the fuck do I know it's not entities in like we have skin. They have plant. I don't know. I just don't know.
No.
And
if
they feel, just operate on some completely different.
absolutely, if other aspects of nature, the natural world, including artifacts that are, quote, human made, we are presumptuous when it comes to what is consciousness and what is language and what are interactive and empathetic forms of communication and communion.
We don't talk to most people unless you're in a loony bin or just crazy like me. We don't talk to inanimate things usually. We don't commune, and not that you have to actually speak to them, but we don't commune with them usually. That's like
Yeah.
You're lonely, you need
We're lonely.
company, other people.
That's right. Yeah, we're at a Grateful Dead concert of animate and inanimate pals, and we think we're, alone. Yeah.
Because they don't speak English. It's the only, it's a very narrow filter. That's it. And the only time you can have company is when you're with other people.
This,
Maybe a dog.
some story is a woman feeding some, ravens, and ravens are, probably way smarter than we are. And one day she's cranky and the ravens come, to get their offering. And she's like, I'm tired of feeding you, why don't you bring me something? And this raven flies off and, a half hour later comes back with a beautiful white eagle feather and puts it down on the porch. What? I mean, did the raven say, oh, our host wants a gift? I don't know what the raven said. We don't know its mind or its telepathic communication skills and vibrations. But perhaps just either serendipitously or it picked up a certain, vibration from a person that was feeding it and was like, I know what to do, and we don't know how self-conscious that act was or not. Or if the raven was happy to do it or complaining like we often complain when we're given a task.
Yeah.
We don't
All right, we
know.
want this bitch to keep feeding us, we gotta get her something, what do you think?
Yeah,
You got anything?
Humans are so hard to shop for.
Yeah,
and I think,
I know, what
you
the
know,
hell do they want, I don't even know.
if we're,
They're never satisfied.
if we're paying more attention to the field rather than, right, one's psychopathy, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we discovered all kinds of relationships that just percolated into presence that appeared to be and could possibly be empathetic and related.
I know plants are a huge thing for me. Like, I just do well with plants, and when I struggle, it's usually I pour my energy into plants. We got this thing going, and I just,
It's all just like Wilson, so I don't know, it's just all the same vibratory, it's all so alive, and then it's like, you don't have to necessarily convert it into a
Right,
relationship at all.
Yes.
That's kind of nice. It's
That's
not-
right.
You don't have to communicate, you don't have to,
no. Well, you know, the maturation of presence in a human soul, a human heart, a human mind, not that any of those are, you know, particularly important. But the maturation of presence is communion. But it's non-specific communion. And it's certainly not codependent communion. And that communion completely wipes clean, you know, the artifacts of self. And here it is.
the best part.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's communion.
Really well
It's communion
people.
on tap. Yeah. That's the, you know, that's the gift of it. Communion on tap.
Not to be earned. You don't have to do anything.
Don't
Just
touch
notice
it. Don't touch it. Don't humanize it. Don't qualify it. Or do. But it's unqualified. So you're, of course, one is permitted, as if you need permission, to qualify at will. But, you know, communion is unqualifiable. That's why it's communion. And it has nothing to do with, you know, having earned its favor or not. No,
it's not that hypocritical. It's just,
Hannibal Lecter, Jeffrey Dahmer, and, you know, Melania Trump have as much access, maybe less so on her part,
Hey,
have as
that was
much
very
access.
sexist. You see how you go with, no.
Yeah. Have as much access to communion as, you know, anybody else, anything else.
I don't get it, maybe they already are. They still just being like morons.
You know, that as a human, we struggle with trying to qualify the mirage of personal experience through the nomenclature of the spiritual or religious or secular cosmology that we think we're loyal to, so that we can say, oh, I'm a member of the tribe also. And it's like, spare me, please. Yeah, there's no need to qualify this. And that's, you know, that's a fun thing and perhaps a valuable thing to contemplate or discover, is the unqualified nature of actual experience. Because without that, then one imagines himself to be local and alone and at odds with one's own imagination, one's own identity.
Well, it seems like that hijacking of attention like automatically creates, everything becomes an object.
Yes,
So, and that's it's like, because it's all in relation to you, and so it has to be, there has to be, once you're an object, everything's an object.
yes,
And
that's right. And how quickly one as a so-called subject becomes an object is interchangeable.
yeah.
As
Well, I mean,
subject, you're an
the
object.
whole- Right, the whole field becomes
Yes.
objectified.
Yes, the entire
Instantly.
field is objectified instantaneously. And that is the dukkha, that is the unsatisfactoriness of an isolated self.
Once it's nothing but objects, that's all you've got.
Once it's,
Nothing but objects, that's all you've got access to.
that's right. Now you're greedy and insatiable.
Just using tools to move objects around all day, however it looks is, whether it's greedy or not, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's just the only game, you enrolled in some kind of game, and that's like all you got. It's like,
Yes. So we can, if one has the, just the minimum amount of IQ and certain, invitation to explore the texture and the geometry and the undulation of consciousness, then you can really make some, valuable observations, mind-boggling observations, gut-splitting observations about the myth of yourself. And then hopefully the tendency for projection and transference can relax sufficiently so that you effortlessly drop into communion. So the field is no longer object dependent, and the field is no longer subject dependent, and consciousness can fuck off. Otherwise, craving will persist. Craving and becoming will persist. The promise of our world, or our living in the world, if you want to look at it from a geopolitical or socio-political experimental point of view, the promise is how quickly can the species discover the revelation and realization of emptiness, of the unqualified generosity of phenomenon. And if it can discover it, then it can conduct itself in a way that perhaps there is, sustainability, both ecologically and, across species and humane ecology. But if the species does not discover the miracle of unqualified abundance, it will rip itself apart from greed. And you can create whatever report card you want to create about the milieu. The means of production and energy and food and waste and oceanic sustainability. I mean, these are perhaps were much easier to cope with in our more primitive, right, past. But with the rapid exploitation of the neocortex and the opposable thumb, now the means of production and the sustenance of 7 point something billion creatures vying for, right, clean air, clean food, clean water, and humane treatment may have caught us off balance. We just might not be mature enough. With respect to our style of organizing the world, to be stewards of, peace and dignity.
No reverie, then there's not gonna be any, there's no reverie, there's no room for it, there's no time for it.
Yeah.
You're just gonna keep pile driving over everything.
Yes.
You're busy, you're in a hurry, you're, distracted, you got things to do. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the xenophobia and painful mistrust of other, exaggerated, through the nation state, the conflict of the nation state, the race, right, gender abuse, and then of course religious and cultural cosmology. Instead of being a kind of global melting pot of kumbaya, becomes a smoldering shitbox of exploitation.
I would contend it's a little bit of both. I don't think it's quite so black and white. I think there's pockets of shitbox and then there's pockets of.
Well, here we are at Pebble Hill. It's a peace site.
And sometimes they're really.
Yeah, sure. No, what's the appropriate, if there's even appropriate, balance or measure as concerns, the radical nature of self-realization being absolutely discontinuous with what we refer to as the human experience. I mean, wholly discontinuous with what we refer to as the human experience. So there's that, which some people find interesting to contemplate and consider, cultivate and articulate. And then there's the, right, vagaries of the human meme and its institutions. I don't know what is the, proper way to hold all of this rich soil so that, you're not going Pollyanna, or you're not waving your hands around saying, I am that, or you're not getting, one is not getting too depressed by the direction of the socio-political experiment. What in an ashram, let's say, right, in an organized environment where people are there voluntarily, supporting some kind of community, and paying appropriate obeisance to the master, whoever she or he might be, right? So that's a family of a kind, strange, right? It's not quite egalitarian, because you find yourself either in devotional or behavioral, right, obeisance to, let's say, Osho or whomever, if you're in a, right, community thing. Well, what happens if the water main breaks or the electricity goes out or the, kitchen runs bare? What is the guru going to make sure that you're fed and cared for and nourished, and everyone's going to, hightail it the fuck out of there? Yeah, everyone's going to flip out. So even they'll do the same thing at Muji's ashram. So let's just say it's all very fragile, isn't it?
Feels like it.
Yeah.
It feels so fragile and yet it keeps going.
So far, yeah, it's pretty tenacious.
It really, the sense of fragility is as high, I think, as it ever has been.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost hard to tell, is it truly more fragile than it used to be, or has it always been this fragile? And we just,
Yeah, it might
when
be.
you talk to anybody that was in a Nazi death camp, they would say it's pretty fucking fragile. And that was quite a while ago. I mean, I think it depends on where you sit in some cases.
Yeah, that's right. You'd like to think that everyone that goes to the Bilderberg meeting is pretty relaxed. But who knows? It's just more conspiracy talk.
Which fake news.
They don't have a weird sometimes.
They don't got no peace poll at the Bilderberg meeting.
Therapist that she works with PTSD. She was like, I don't know what to do with somebody that's just like, they go off on the flat earth thing and running.
Yeah,
And then there's the people that are just deep into conspiracy theory and they, that's all they get. And
Yeah.
That's all they look at. I'm like,
yeah. It's a trip.
You just agree with them.
I didn't say anything. I
I'm like, you just agree with them? And
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what she does.
Yeah. Everywhere I've traveled, whether by boat or plane or car, seemed pretty damn flat to me.
True.
I don't- yeah.
Depends on where you sit.
I don't have any evidence to the contrary. You can show me some pictures, that they say NASA took and stuff, but that's just a picture.
Could be a round disc, basically.
My experience has always been pretty flat. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like all we really have is our firsthand experience. And it's such a small slice. And we have such access to the broad range through the internet and communication now. It's just.
Well, yeah, that's right. Our so-called small experience is a contrivance.
It's small.
Yeah.
And yet it's the only reality we've got.
Well, I don't know. Maybe not. But like you said, it depends on where you're sitting. Depends on the mood you're in. If you're in a kind of a local mood, then whatever you think your firsthand experience is all you got. I don't know what that means, but I kind of know what that means, of course. But that imagination of having so-called local or small experience and being all you've got is appearing at the pleasure of infinity. So what do you got? A small experience or infinity? No experience. And you're just making shit up. some yogi sits in a, cemetery somewhere, just resting in infinity, and then once in a while wanders around and picks off the fruit that was left at the gravestones, to eat. Yeah. That's just unbroken infinity.
I've been pondering here a little bit. I'm sitting there with a candy wrapper in front of me at this meeting, and it starts to move and sort of walk its way across the table. It's like,
Yeah, that's because you're telekinetic.
I think it was Erica.
When it comes to chocolate, I'm completely telekinetic. All chocolate comes to me. Yeah.
But air is weird shit. It's like invisible. When it's all perturbed and on a tear, holy cow! It's amazing when it's really windy. And yet you can't really see it. You can feel it. You can tell a big story about it and why something would walk itself across a table. But I'm just curious. Reminds me, I haven't been talking about the sky.
Sure.
Like, jets don't rip a big hole in the sky as they go across. I like that metaphor. It points to something that it's what you just referred to.
Mind appears at the pleasure of consciousness. Consciousness appears at the pleasure of emptiness. Land where you will.
Pointer, it's like a metaphor for emptiness.
Yes.
Emptiness starts messing with emptiness and creates the everything.
Could be. Could be.
What, did it get bored with being utterly empty and just decide to fill itself up?
Maybe you're onto something.
I get bored sometimes.
So then you and emptiness have a lot in common. When it comes to, let's say, whatever fulfillingness might be, what we permit to be fulfilling, what we're taught or conditioned to be fulfilling or fulfilled, could turn out to be perhaps too narrow, too banal, too physical, let's say, or sensually dependent. Yeah. And so we get bored and restless because fulfillingness is our nature, let's say. Emptiness, infinity, fulfillingness is our nature. But if we've been conditioned, to pursue sense gratification, emotional, psychological, whatever, gratification and novelty, we might be selling ourselves a little bit short. And, thus, right, boredom.
Think about little kids. They're awake in full blast. They're just like, they're always.
Yeah.
But they tend to just work with what's in front of them. They can entertain themselves out in the same box. Pretty much more easily entertained because they don't have to have the next. If you don't have this, then you're always, what's next? And you're bored if there's not the next. You haven't cleared yet.
without qualification, we don't know what this is. And if we draw upon, some kind of innuendo or metaphor, anecdote or story, then we have the means of comparison, the means of deduction, the means of conclusion. But in order to get deduction or inference or conclusion, you have to make shit up.
Or believe in a made-up story.
Yeah, that's right. We create anecdotal tension from nothing at all. And then we think we have, the means of a conclusion or something that will guide our spiritual hand. Pour it away.
It really matters. Once we have something and then we can defend and protect it, we're good.
As long as I have something that I can defend with violence, I'll be fine. I'll be fine.
I'm good.
That's right.
Better.
Fitted perfectly.
Yeah.
Have lots to talk about.
Right. You can see how many years and how many dollars one can spend trying to resolve the myth of themselves,
Goodness.
right? I mean,
Let me
that's,
count the ways.
let me count the ways. Yeah,
Boy, there's more now than there's ever been.
boy,
God, they're just like scrubbing.
yes. There's more solutions for the myth of myself now than there's ever been.
How is it you can spend a lifetime get to where you think you can be? Think about Lisa, and she went for lots of reconciliation.
Yes.
Good.
She went right, right into tons.
That's
That's right.
the best solution. She just took care of it all in one shot.
Yeah, she discovered the best solution.
She looked pretty peaceful last time I saw her.
That's right.
All those problems were resolved.
We're so indoctrinated to the personal inventory of myself and everything that's, not so great about me and everything that's absolutely great about me. And of course, everyone needs to hear both nonstop.
Well, you do.
Yes,
The talker is just nonstop, me, I.
Yes. right.
That's nonstop. I saw, I'm brave, I saw, I'm brave.
Yeah, so our relationship with therapies and vitamins, food, mediums, ascended masters, dog whisperers, right? Massage therapists.
You remember that?
These are all, the fun, thrilling accoutrements of self. If you have the, leisure and the income to indulge in these things. If you're, living in a one-bedroom apartment with 3 generations and you're working 2 jobs,
Actually, massages. Yeah, I started. I don't care.
You know,
I still have a massage therapist.
somebody touch me. You know, how well does, what's his name, the dead guy? The erogenous zones?
Okay.
Anyway, he was the guy that bankrolled Ramdas's digs in Hawaii. You know, famous Me Generation novel writer and stuff. Anyway, so I mean, you know, pick on anyone for fun. It could be Carolyn Meese, it could be Eckhart Tolle, it could be Byron Katie, it could be whomever. You know, how well does that shit play? You know, in the Islamic world.
No idea.
See, we don't have any idea how well does that shit play in, you know, the African subcontinent, South America. This,
Well, like South Africa has its own for sure, but yeah, like I don't know different parts, you know, but they have Bunto and all this weird, they have all that shit that's very similar.
yeah,
But the South Africa is still a lot of good people. Depending on where you're at. It's similar.
I mean, you know, our imagination and view of the world, or our place in it, or our spiritual heroes, you know, is quite arbitrary.
What do you think was so special?
We always do.
What arrogant country. Unbelievable.
If only it were just arrogant.
Yeah.
Small arrogance would be okay.
Yeah,
But no.
nonviolent arrogance.
Tina. And not
Yeah.
giving up an inch arrogance. With a-
Yeah. The consumptive agenda is not about to reverse anytime
Yeah.
soon. Make sure there's, you know, opioids in your go bag.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be probably the only good plan. If you had a plan, would be make sure you have sufficient steps of opioids somewhere so that you can take your life peacefully
Yeah,
and not like starve to death.
yeah. I don't know if the preppers are going to be all that happy with the results of their efforts.
Not a tree. That was gotten, not one tree. Okay, where are you going? And even if you have like 2 months of food in your basement,
Yeah,
okay, 2 months. And then what? You know?
you got a lot of worrying to do during those 2
Yeah,
months.
why would you
Two months
even
of
want
living on beans, you're gonna wish you were there.
and try to ration them
Really?
for as long as possible?
Can you
Why
sprinkle
would
some
you
opioids
even-
into those beans?
Yeah, I know. I'd rather just take the opioids and be like, I'm all set. Thank you. Time to go down. I mean, why extend? You know, it's like we want to extend the suffering for as long as possible. As long as we get to extend this ourselves, we, you know, just keep extending. I was I'm sorry, but if there's no pizza, I'm out.
Yeah, a world without pizza is no world. not convince me otherwise.
I'm not the cauliflower crust kind.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about gluten-free vegan pizza either. You know, if there were spiritual advice, thank God there's not. You could say, leave conceiving alone. Don't do anything about it or yourself. I mean, we or this animates, you know, spontaneously, serendipitously. It animates and takes itself to be something, someone. And it does so, you know, through the movement, the assignment of conceiving. You just leave the conceiving alone. And it's worth, you know, let's say learning how to do that. You know, if meditation and mindfulness and Dzogchen and all this stuff were taught in a, you know, useful way, it would be that. The instruction would be to discover the texture of presence and wean one's habit from conceiving. You know, being instruction around being so-called mindful, that is stupid instruction. Common and bullshit. Because mindful of what and who is doing this, you know, mindfulness? I mean, it's just another form of isolation.
Narcissistic control, which could possibly
Yes.
solution.
Yeah,
For me, the mindful attempts would just barn door wide open to head.
yeah.
This big brain fucking loves mindful.
Oh, yeah. It's got an audience. Right. Yeah. Mindful's not such a great idea. Even if you're eating slow, chewing your food each bite 30 times and singing "My lovely eyes, my lovely knees." You know, I mean, that stuff's fun, but yeah, you don't want to waste your time being mindful of anything. Just leave conceiving alone. Then there's no role for the imagination of your, call it, personal attention. See, as soon as attention is personalized or is your attention. And the quality of that attention, is being steered or managed by the likes of you so that you're more than less mindful, you're in big trouble. You're full of pride. Even if you're not
in a qualitative codependent relationship.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah. 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 Buddhism is taught mostly, at least all the diluted horse shit that we tolerate in this country or other places in the so-called West. It's taught as a fetish.
Pretty much like everything else.
Like everything else is.
I mean, look how
Right? So that one can.
Jesus was replaced with Buddha. Now everyone has Buddhas in there.
Yes.
Be a cross or
You can
Jesus now.
smooth out and soothe out the frustration of consciousness. You can smooth out and soothe out the frustration of individuation by being mindful. No, you can't. It's not going to fucking work. You just get, zombies. Just leave conceiving alone. Don't do anything with it. Don't fucking be mindful. Just leave it alone. Because the moment you're, so-called present, like a dog catcher, with a net, right? Then it's too late. You're already a artifact of the myth of qualification, the myth of qualities. Because you want your experience or hope your experience will feel one way as contrasted with another way. You're doomed. You'll never stop feeling, ever stop feeling that you want your experience to feel one way as contrasted with another way. And mindfulness will not help you. I mean, if you want to be a successful Buddhist, knock yourself out. You could be a popular Buddhist lecturer on the circuit, helping everyone with their compassion. Jesus
It's all
Christ.
cardies, repackaged cardies. I had that realization actually. Oh, massage therapist that I was going to see. She used to be hula hooping everywhere. She's like a hula hoop. She's a cardi, totally. I'm like, this is totally just a repackaged. That's what everyone does.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Well, Hooping wasn't making enough money, so now I massage people.
That's, yeah.
Put on killer music
Learn to leave this alone and do it with friends.
a lot of interest.
I mean, the more nourished one becomes by virtue of leaving this alone, the fewer stories you have to tell, and for sure, the fewer stories you want to hear. You know, it's nice not to have a past. It's nice not to have a future. It's the best not to have a present. It's only through qualification, narcissistic qualification, that we place ourselves in the context of prior, present, or future experience. If we're not turning to that qualification, if we're not, dare I say, milking the teat of conceiving, we ain't got nothing.
Yeah, if it's not reliant on your dialogue, obviously not, but sure, some people will argue about that one, but,
Yeah,
it's not reliant on your dialogue. I mean, yeah, the only reason you could really be doing it is for kind of to milk it, to get something for your, some kind of story for yourself, some kind of something for, if it's not necessary, you know, in order to keep doing whatever it does. It's a very different, if it's just for entertainment.
yes. Habituated entertainment.
And can still be entertainment, you know, it's not, it's, but it's just, that's all it is, it's not like, not actuality.
Yeah. As we, you know, travel down that strange road and come to understand the nature of conceiving more intimately, then the reflex of self, you could say, has an opportunity to soften. And the habit to derive experience from experience through the vehicle of conceiving relaxes and relaxes and relaxes, then prior experience is not binding, future experience is clearly not binding, present experience is not binding. You're not
There is no longer an
oriented.
experience in the way that we generally would think of an experience as being.
Yep.
It's just a bunch of bizarre textures and light and colors, and even that is not really, but
Yes. And being nourished by inconceivability, who knows, maybe we, shy away from entanglement.
Well, if you shy away from, I don't know, you kind of naturally shy away from it.
Uh-huh.
Like dialogue altogether. It's like, not that interesting. So how are you gonna entangle? I mean, you'll naturally, whatever. Like if you fall into a bush, you'll be entangled in the bush, but.
Yes, you can always fall into a bush. As long as you've already finished your slice of pizza. Because if it goes flying, there's going to be hell to pay. Who put this bush here? I lost my pizza. Yeah, conceiving is it has, its texture is, you could say, of the nature of derivation. I'm deriving. I'm existing. I'm imagining. Placing myself in context, content, circumstances. Defending myself.
So in that context, like entanglement is like the same word as relationship.
Yes. Could be, sure.
In relationship with anything.
That's right. Yeah, because if you're in a relationship with something, there's two.
You're instantly entangled.
Then entanglement is your middle name. But you can go E, period. Just go with the initial. Yeah. And this is a very different, texture than, being a wrangler for the cattle of your imagination. What you need to do about or with yourself and the things that appear to be, bothering you, either too much of or too little of. See, without conceiving, without turning to derivations, you don't have to do anything about yourself. You don't have to fix anything.
Thank God, because it's not possible.
It doesn't fucking work anyway. Even Byron Katie can't help you with the imagination of yourself. The whole methodology, right? The questions and the turnaround and all the wonderful, skillful stuff that she does. You're like, what? It's like I'm way too invested, way too invested in who or what I take myself to be. And I certainly don't need to add another, methodology, technique to further emphasize who or what it is I think I am. Just leave conceiving alone.
Something in me just was like, oh no. Drop the whole thing.
Seeking resolution for one's psychosomatic, psycho-emotional frustrations and ailments is just the myth of becoming. It's the wrong remedy because of the misdiagnosis that anything has ever happened to you. Don't diagnose it, and then there's no remedy. Just leave conceiving alone. And the intelligence that you find, which is not an articulatable intelligence, it's not a knowledge-based or object-based intelligence. Palpable presence of infinity. That's what you discover as you take the risk to leave conceiving alone. The last thing you want to do is tell yourself or anybody else a story about anything. You just do not want to manufacture yourself once you've gotten a good taste of the absence of yourself. Big turnout. 300 people representing 6 different countries.
Cool. But does the leader of that whole group look like how do you?
Yeah. I think he does. I'm going to paint some freckles on. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope that your realization is deep, impenetrable, and lasts for the remainder of your life. And good night.